Hi, good evening. Welcome to a Barmy Army podcast. Tonight I am joined by Andy and Chloe. Good evening, both. You both okay?
Very well, thank you, Mark.
Good.
Yeah, getting along.
Good. I suppose that's all we can do in these times. Just get along.
Plodding on.
Plodding on. Tonight we will be talking about the game from Friday night. We've all had a few days now to mull it over in our minds. But just before we do, on behalf of Nat, Deborah, Shane, Fiona, and myself, we just want to thank people because we've been nominated for a Lockdown Hero Award from the FSA. We were completely surprised by it. We didn't know anything about it, and it's through our charity donations we've done over lockdown, and it's through the podcasts, it's through the Sunday socials that we're still doing, and there's three people being shortlisted from the Women's Network. There's ourselves, there's the Barmy Army, there's Angarad and Amy Turner, and Chelsea football team. So United have a chance of beating Chelsea. So that's a positive. Let's start on that. So thank you, guys. It's blown us away, to be brutally honest. Right, now we've done the niceties, I suppose we should get down to talking about Friday night's game.
No, let's talk about that award a bit more.
All right, let's talk about it.
Before we get onto that game, let's talk about the good stuff a bit more.
Yeah, no, he's come out of the blue. We were nominated. We don't even know who's nominated us. It's completely shocked us. It's Angarad and Amy have been nominated for the sponsored bike ride they did, the indoor bike ride. Chelsea have been nominated because they gave their prize money away. And we've been nominated because of all the things that we've been doing over lockdown. So it's great news for us. We're very happy over it.
As much as we could claim credit for nominating, because you don't know who did it, I hold my hands up. It wasn't me, but I will say it's thoroughly well deserved.
Thank you. It's like I said, it's taken us all by surprise. Evening Debs, evening Karen, evening Ref, evening John, evening Max, evening Fiona, and thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. Right, I don't think we can plot it out for another 50 minutes as much as we try. I suppose we'll have to talk about the game.
All right.
Oh yeah, and also as Leah's been nominated for the FSA Player of the Year as well, so don't forget to vote for Leah. Fiona might put the link up in the chat for everyone because I don't know what it is. Thanks, Fiona. Before we get on to the City game, though, I want to ask you both a question that was put to me. What does the Manchester Derby mean to you both? Andy, do you want to start? Give Chloe a bit of thinking time.
Yeah, I think who the first game you look for each season depends a little bit on where you grow up, because we're not short of rivals. True. And growing up halfway down the East Lancs, slightly closer to Manchester than Liverpool, I might add. Good. Everybody growing up around me was either United or Liverpool, especially in the 90s, because City were nobodies then. So other than 3 yards from Main Road, there were no City fans about. So as far as bragging rights were concerned, Liverpool was the big one. But as a season ticket holder, when you're at the ground, the atmosphere is up there against City, even when they were not challenging for anything. When we were going to play them every other season because they couldn't stay up for longer than a season. Even that, it was, even if we were on form, we were the dominant force throughout the 90s, but there was always a worry that City might beat you. So it's up there probably jointly with me for the biggest derby, but it's even without knowing any fans at home, that match to be at was intense. It was one you really wanted to win.
Yeah. Still is. Chloe?
Yeah, I think I second what Andy says. I think it's definitely the first game, or one of the first games you look for when the fixtures are released. Home and away, you look for it straight away. And yeah, I've had friends and ex-family get around that support City and support Liverpool, and there's always that added spice to the game with the rivalry between City. And it's about pride and it's the bragging rights. You want to be top of the town, and we've done that for many years. And I think with Liverpool, that was the one that was up there. But I think with City performing how they've performed recently over the years, that started to bring back the bit of edge that we used to have with Liverpool. There's now with both of them, so it brings a nice factor to the game of as a fan that it's more than the 3 points. I would say when you win.
Yeah, I agree with you both completely. Right, there's another question about Friday night's game. Evening Jake, evening John, and evening Sang. Chloe, what were your expectations going into Friday night?
Performance-wise, I wanted a response from the Reading game. I knew the game would be tough. City were on form. There's no doubt about that. But I thought we could at least come away with a point. And that's what I was realistically a point should have been suffice. 3 points would have been amazing. Yeah. But definitely a more positive performance than a Reading game is what I expected.
Okay. Andy, what were your expectations going into the game on Friday night?
I think over the past couple of years, I've always felt that out of those old big three, City were the ones that we put up the best show against. And yeah. I thought we were well set up to make a statement this time. So it was a bit, well, obviously disappointing, but a bit surprising at how probably easy we made it for them, because it was, I had big hopes for a response, like Chloe said. Yeah. We got the response after the Chelsea defeat. The Reading defeat was very disappointing, and then to not respond and to not even put up a great fight. I mean, three goals. It's just I expected far more.
Yeah. Just going back to the question about what does the derby mean, Fiona's answered, we always want to say Manchester is red completely. And Deborah says, as a Manc, it matters because of the Monday morning workplace banter. So, yeah, no, I agree with those. And I agree with what you said. I expected at least some sort of reaction in performance. And I thought Casey's pre-match talk would have been, don't do what you did last Sunday again. Just go out and put something on. The team news, were either of you surprised with the starting 11?
I don't even know what I would choose myself. I mean, I'm not in the lineup league, so I don't have that pressure to think about it every week, but I don't know what I would have gone with. I think what we always come down to talking about is the impact of Tobin Heath, and with him available, Kristen Press has been showing some more signs, but it's not quite there to lift us into games. And I don't know what 11 I would want to start, to be honest, at the minute.
Because it seemed to me, and Chloe, you were in the watch along, it seemed to me that once, I don't want to jump far too ahead to the first corner, but it seemed that when City got that corner, a lot of people, Jack especially, thought, well, that's it, they're going to score from this. And on social media, Millie came in for a lot of stick because of that. Do you think there's been slightly too much pressure put on Millie recently, that everyone's saying it's all her fault and she needs to come out of the team, or are you the opinion Millie's still one of our best defenders she has to play?
I mean, I think there has been a dip in form with Millie, but then you look and think, who would you know, who have we got? We're pretty sparse in that area. I mean, okay, we've brought in Maria, but she played right back. She's played right back for the past two because of injuries. And I don't think we can solely blame Millie for the defensive performances. I think if we look at the corner and the goal they scored from it, we had 5 a good 4 or 5 players marking fresh air to begin with for the setup. And it was the same for the Reading. The whole first phase, second phase play to our set pieces is killing us off. And I don't know who you could look at that back four for inspiration to give the team a bit of a rollicking at the back foot and a leadership style player to correct them wrongs at the moment. We're lacking in that area, I would suggest.
Yeah. Just going to go on to a few of the comments. John Fry says, we looked a bit tired in his eyes on Friday night. Deborah says, could have taken the loss with slightly more positivity if the performance was better. Bad luck and injuries didn't help, but the performance as a neutral was surprisingly flat. Oh, Jake. I was expecting defeat, but we had no fight. 3-0 is a fair scoreline, well and truly beaten. Fiona, more disappointed with the performance and the result. We showed no fight. And John Fry says, and with our injuries, we are light in our choice of players too. I think more people are upset with the performance than the result, personally. But during the game, the first 20 minutes of the game, I don't think there was a lot between the teams at all. I don't think the ball was going more left to right than forwards, from my point of view. Andy, would you have started Hayley and Katie Zellen in this game, knowing Tooney would be pushed out to the right?
I don't know if it would be my first choice, but I don't think you can either look at it and think, why is that happening? I think that it's a Hayley Ladd and Katie Zellum is a good midfield. Toon's form has been good generally throughout the season. Who'd you put on the right? Kirsty Hansen, was she on the bench?
She was on the bench.
She's your natural right-wing choice if Heath's not available, but, Toon's made a case for starting, whether it's on the right or in the middle. I think you could probably come up with 3 or 4 choices that you can easily call right or wrong before or after a game at the minute. Ladd and Zellen could easily put in a performance and win the game for us, and you wouldn't be surprised. So hindsight's great, but looking at the beginning, I don't think you'd question it.
Chloe, Shane made a point during the game. I think it was Shane. I can't remember. Shane said that he doesn't understand it. Before Christmas, Tooney was playing as a number 10, and you had Tobin on the right side, and you had Leah obviously on the left. But since we come back after Christmas, Zelly's been in and Tooney's been left out. But as Andy said, you could have played Kirsty Hansen and let Tooney have that role. Were you surprised that Zelly started in this game, or were you of the opinion she's a holder as well, so it's for a bit of backup?
I think it's a hard one to try and get your head around, because you never know what team's going to be selected at the minute. And I think we've been quite lucky in the past, we kind of roughly know what we're going to get. So I think sticking Hayley and Katie together, for me, I don't like. It's too defensive for my liking. And it's kind of, whether that's one of the reasons that our dip in performance, it's clearly something has tweaked the flow of our play. And there's no question that for me, Hayley starts. She's one of the first names on the team sheet for me. It's just fitting in where you would play Tooney and when you play Katie. I mean, she is she's the club captain, and she's been out for a while, and she seems to come back in, and they've not been outstanding performances she's put on, but she does solidify the midfield as such in certain games. So I'm unsure. I'm still undecided on Katie fitting in to our midfield, whether it hinders or helps at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just going to go through some of the comments very quickly. John Fry says he thinks Millie needs a rest and let Maria and Amy have a go. Jake then jumps in and says Maria will give her real competition when our defenders are all fit. Ref, he was nervous before kickoff. He could have taken a defeat with a performance. Unfortunately, we got beat 3-0, no performance. We are not learning from our mistakes, and it's really worrying. Fiona then jumps in. Defending corners and crosses are a team effort. Deborah makes the point that I think we're missing a leader on the pitch as well. Jake then jumps in. The poor performance led to the result. And then Jake goes, I'm going to say, John Fry, I'm going to say something that we are missing Lucy in the midfield as she is looking strong before she got injured. Maybe in place of Katie when Lucy is fit. Now, that looked like some good news because on some of the pre-game photographs that were being released, Alessia and Lucy Stan were out with the team. Trey are warming up. So hopefully they're all right for the Villa game in a couple of weeks. A question to you both. The fact we conceded from a corner, would that upset Casey more, or is it just the overall? What would have upset her more, the conceding of the corner, or was it everything in that game? Andy?
I think probably everything because, like you say, you commented the first 20 minutes you thought we looked in the game.
Yeah.
We concede a goal, and then what? That's where the character comes in, but it didn't. And that's where I think we talk about the selection of Katie Zellum and Hayley Ladd in midfield. The first question you asked on the call was, what does the derby mean to you? Now, out of all of our squad, Katie Zellum is the one you expect the derby to mean the most to. So we've all said we wanted a reaction in this game to previous results. It seems like a natural choice to put Katie in there. United through and through, club captain. She's got a bit of fight about her. She's not soft. Get her in there and get her driving us forward. It didn't work out like that, but that's where the character should have been to respond to previous results and to respond to going one down. And I think the reaction to going one down is part of what drove the performance down.
Yeah. Evening Namrata. Fiona says, I think Katie provides defensive cover, but then our midfield doesn't click. And I tend to agree with that. John Fry just basically says everything just from Casey that night. Chloe, Jake says, Russo returning could be the cure to all our problems. Goals, 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 I hope. Oh, is it as simple as that, do you think? We're missing Alessia? Because on Friday night, we did have chances. I don't want to take anything away, but we did have the chances.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and Casey touched on it. Against City, we created the chances. Reading, we created the chances. Chelsea, we create the chances. The issue at the moment with us in front of goal, we're not clinical enough, which we were at the start of the season. We knew if we were on the attack, the likelihood the ball would end up in the back of the net. Now we're struggling to get it past the 18 yards with any real intent and idea.
Yeah.
And it's taken press a couple of games to get in. I mean, the Everton game, we looked like we were finally getting the press we expected. And that kind of dropped off again against City and Reading. Now, whether that's because of the outlet she's getting from the midfield, I don't know, but we've kind of lost that spark as well in front of goal for me. And I think maybe the players do need a challenge with bringing Russo back, that it creates that bit of competitiveness for our strikers that if they're not performing, they're going to fall out the team.
Yeah. Andy, on the podcast that you've been on, we've spoken mainly about Tobin.
Yep.
But the last few games, we've seen what I think is the best of Kristen Press. What have you made of her performances?
Generally, I think I've been impressed, but I think she's lashing at chances a bit more than showing a bit of composure. and we know that she's got the composure. But especially with Heath's injury, there probably is that bit of extra pressure on her to be that, replace her as that focal point, as the player that's going to lift the class in our team. It's obvious she's got it, but I think in general, like Chloe says, we're struggling in front of goal. We're not clinical enough. Who do you want in front of goal if that's the issue? Kristen Press, but she's along the same line. She's getting the chances and lashing a bit.
Yeah, I'm going to come on to a point that Fiona's made. Oh, not that one. It's that one. Katie's playing for her place in the starting 11 and also for a new contract at the moment. In Fiona's opinion, she won't give her either. Is that a harsh comment or a fair comment? Andy?
If you look at Katie's performances for United's existence, it sounds harsh. But recently, judging on a performance right now, it's a fair comment. Is there some hangover from the whole Dubai thing? She was kind of the main one to face the brunt of that. Has she been the same since that break? It's not an unfair comment. I'd like to see her improve and stay and get the chance, but I don't think it's overly harsh.
Okay. So, Chloe, Kristen Presson, I can ask you the same thing. You've been a part of most of our watch along, so you've seen her come on in bits and bobs. But Everton, you mentioned the Everton game, and as you said, you thought it all clicked. And then she completed her first 90 minutes against Reading, and then she completed the second one against City. So, what have you made of her performances?
A bit of a mixed bag, in all honesty. You can see there's potential, and we know she's got potential. And you can see, I think you saw it more in the Everton game, that it was coming through. And I think that's shown because of our performance. Our performance was better as a team against Everton than it was against Reading and City, and she thrived off that. She was getting the chances. It was fast flowing. The movement was better. Whereas the past two games have been quite static, quite slow, and I don't think she benefits off that sort of style of play. So I think for me, her time at United so far has been a bit hit and miss. And I don't, we know she's got more to give, and I'd just like her to start seeing that a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I'll just come on to a few comments. John Fry, he says, her movement is world class, just the finishing touch letting her down at the moment. Fiona then goes on to say her best performance is in a United shirt, but Kristen has another level. Just briefly going back onto the Katie thing, John Fry makes a point, actually. Katie hasn't been the same since she caught COVID. Can we still use that now? Is that still a usable reason, Andy?
I think if Casey's picking her to start, then that can't be an excuse, because
right. Yeah.
If that is the reason, then that's got to be visible in training.
Yeah.
You can't look at her in training and think she's ready and then put her on the pitch and blame COVID a few months ago. If it's affecting her, it's affecting her in training as well.
Yeah, fair point. Jake then makes the point, I would hate to see some big names leave like Katie Livers in the summer, but it's time for them all to up their game. Nobody's place is cemented anymore. John Fry then says, thinks at least 4 might go in the summer. Interesting, John. Shane, evening Shane. Kristen definitely looks sharper. And I agree. I think in the last couple of games, she's looked really, really good. Namrata says, I thought she was good versus Bristol, Birmingham, Everton, but not been great since. I presume that's Zelly we're talking about there. Oh, and John's 4 doesn't include Tobin and Press. So, John, are you going to break it to us that they've signed a contract and they're here to stay and everything else? There was a bit of a moment during the game where we all had a bit of a, we hope, when Leah got injured. It was an off-the-ball incident. Chloe, how big of a loss is that for us currently with Tobin out, LJ out, and now Leah out?
Massive. I think even if we didn't have the other injuries, Leah on her own is a massive loss. She's one of our best attacking threats we have, and you always know when she's on the pitch, she will be direct and she can change games. Simple as that. So I think with the injuries we have at the minute, now plus Leah's, it's going to be an even bigger loss.
Andy, same for you, is it, with Leah?
Yeah, completely agree. We've talked many times on the pod about Tobin's impact, but Leah's up to game to match that level, and it's a huge loss.
I think the thing that I think's putting a lot of people out there is that we don't even know what's happened. The club haven't said anything, and it could be a big one. John Fry was actually going to make the same point John Fry's just made. Leah's injury could be the difference between the Champions League place for us and fourth. Would you go as far to say it could be that bad, Chloe?
Yeah. I think it leaves us pretty short with attacking-minded players, creative players on the pitch, and she's someone you look to with a bit of fight and a little bit of that leadership coming through. You see her at times directing players, shouting at players, and when you're going for the Champions League places, they're the sort of people you need on the pitch. And she's irreplaceable, so it's going to be a pretty tough loss if that's a long-term injury.
Yeah. Sang made a comment a while ago, and I was waiting for the right time to put it in. And he says, when we have a fully fit squad, we have a more dangerous squad than City and us Chelsea fans' opinion. Would you go as far to agree with that, Andy? That if we have a fully fit squad, we've got probably one of the best squads in the WSL?
I think it's difficult to talk to compare to Chelsea's squad, but aside from that, yeah, we've talked before about who do you play. You know, with Ethan, Press, Rousseau, Lauren James, Sigsworth's still around. Sigsworth's somebody you can always rely on.
Yeah,
Leah Hilton, we're not short of players. It's just that they're all in the treatment room at the minute.
Yeah,
you know, we have some big misses. You don't want to blame it on that because injuries are part of football, but we are missing some players that make a huge difference to us.
Yeah. Jake goes to make the point that I made as well. The silence is concerning about Leah's injury. Shane then makes the point we need to start wrapping Leah in bubble wrap during the winter months, probably. Good evening, Natasha, as well. Deborah makes the point. Last week, Kirsty Hansen signed a new long-term deal. While Leah's out, does this need to be her time, Andy? Does this need to be where she can get in and cement her place?
Yeah, she's another one that's always been reliable for us. If everybody's fit, you wouldn't put her on the right ahead of Tobin Heath. You wouldn't put her on the left ahead of Leah Galton. But with both of those out, she's good enough. She might not have the flair that the others have got, but she's direct and she's definitely good enough. And the boost of the contract, as mentioned, absolutely. But then why didn't she start against City?
Yeah.
What was the problem there?
Agreed. Shane, Leah being out last season was so telling. I worry with the other injuries, we may end up in a similar predicament. John Neville, as if things weren't bad enough, then we go and lose Leah. So we go in at halftime. We've lost, in many people's opinion, one of our best players to an injury. Kirsty Hansen comes on. We go in at halftime 1-0. Chloe, were you still thinking, well, we went in 2-0 down at LSV. It's only one. We can definitely come back in this game because, again, we can make the point. We were creating chances.
Yeah, and with any United team, you always think there's a way back. As long as there's minutes on the clock, you always think there's a way back. And 1-0, when you look at the game, City, were 1-0 up, but they hadn't got out of first gear. They weren't dominating us all over the park. So there was always an opportunity. And you thought when Hansen came on, she's physical, she's attack-minded. You thought you'd use that more, but it just, again, it didn't seem to click. We didn't seem up for it. We didn't from the minute go.
Yeah. What troubled me, and Andy, I'd like to get your opinion on this one. What troubled me was it didn't seem to be from the TV anyway. And I'm probably, the TV doesn't show the game that, the TV doesn't show you what it would look like if you were there live. But to me, it didn't show like we were playing with any intensity, that we weren't, the players were, they were sticking to positions, they weren't running freely. Was that kind of where you were as well?
Yeah, it's some of the last few games as well. It's, the Chelsea loss, we looked good value other than some errors. But then since that, we've not been as smooth. We've had a few hiccups. With the Reading defeat is the killer one. You lose to City, it's disappointing, but they're one of the big three. The performance aside, a loss against City it's a result that can happen. Yeah. The loss against Reading, that was probably a bigger blow expectation wise. And they're the points that we should be picking up if we want to see ourselves as a solid top three team. Our only drop points should be against the other top three. That should be the level we're aiming for. And I think that shows how the character has dropped lately. And yeah, I think that's what the City performance comes down to.
Yeah.
A lack of, not necessarily a lack of character, because we know it's there in some of the players at least. But the form, the mood is so low at the minute that I think that's what dragged us down.
Yeah. Fiona, just wanted to go a few comments. Fiona, when we have a strong first 11, we just lack the quality and depth. John Fry says, we're all fit, we have a strong squad, but too many injuries at the moment. Namrata says, it's almost the same squad as last year when Leah got injured and we struggled to cope. John Fry then goes to make on the point, fingers crossed now Kirsty doesn't get injured now as well. Jake, if Leah is out long term, like Tobin, will be a huge test of character and stability for the whole squad. I am a bit concerned about the depth of the team right now. Hayley Ladd, Hayley Ladd picked up a yellow card in the first half, and then she was making a few tackles. And then there was a point in the second half where she made a tackle again. The ref blew, and we thought, well, Hayley Ladd's going here. But she didn't. And then Casey subbed off Hayley Ladd for, I believe it was Jess. At that point, when Hayley was still on the pitch, it was 1-0. The minute Hayley goes off, City go and score. Was that a massive turning point for you, Chloe, when Hayley Ladd just was subbed off? Or was it the right decision to take her off?
It's a tricky one. I think if you look at the past two games, Reading was the same. We took her off, we concede. She holds it all together and creates the link, but she can be a little bit of a liability with the tackles. And I did think at one point she was going to walk, especially when the ref blew for it. And, the Reading players were making it aware that she was already at City. Lucy Bronze was making the ref aware that she was already on a yellow. But then that comes from your management and your captain to just have a quiet word in her ear and say, look, you're on a yellow here. We need you, and that's their own, mentality and character. They need to realise that, because I think her going off the pitch does make a difference.
Yeah. Just going to come on to a point with you, Andrew. I'm just going to go through a few more comments first. Deborah says, what troubles me is that City didn't need to play amazing football to beat us 3-0. And actually, that's the point I was going to talk to you about, Andy. Jake says, we relied on them both too much this season. Now it's showing time for another hero. Jane Ross apparently is going to be the hero. I'll just leave that there for everyone else. Where was the other one? Andy, City's game. They weren't great. Let's be. They weren't great, were they?
Nope. It wasn't. it wasn't like, refer back to the Chelsea game. We played well, other than some errors, but we played against the best team in the league. On Friday, we played against a team that, at the level they played at, we could have won 3-0. But our performance was below theirs. That's the reality. That, we were good enough to beat. We're good enough to beat them at their best. We're more than good enough to beat them at the level they played on Friday. But we had our own problems.
Yeah. Karen, good evening, Karen. Karen makes a point, with Russo coming back, maybe try press on the wing, especially with our other injuries. As we said, Hayley Ladd was subbed off and Jess came on. And I've said it before, and we've all said it, Jess plays out on the right, which isn't her natural position. Her natural position, as we all know, is straight through the middle as a striker. Chloe, when she came on, there was still enough time for us to equalise. It was 1-0, or then it suddenly became 2-1 very quickly. Would you have swapped Jess and Kristen around and played Kristen on the wing and Jess through the middle to maybe have that physical impact on Steph, which people know she can't handle?
Yeah. I think there was no harm in trying it. We were 1-0 down. Plan A wasn't working. And like we said, we all know that Steph, when players are running at her and are physical, is a downfall. And as technically gifted as Press is, I don't think she gives us that physical, bullyish presence that Siggy would have down the middle. And like you say, Plan A wasn't working, so why not give it? Why not try it? What was the worst that could happen? Because on the performance that we had on Friday, it couldn't get much worse.
Andy, would you have swapped it around for a while?
I think there's a definite shout for it. I think with Jess, you always know what you're getting. You don't really get a bad performance. She might not be the classy player that Kristen Press should be, but she's relentless. Defenders don't get a break when she's around. And if you want to threaten a defence, put somebody there who will run them ragged. And then with Press on the wing as well, if you make that change, we've said she's looking sharper than she ever has. It's just in front of goal, she's not herself. So take that pressure off her. Take the pressure off her of being the one that you're relying on to get a goal. See what impact she can have from the wing while the defence is being run ragged. There's a call for both players being in the opposite positions there.
Completely. Jake makes the point. As you all know, I love Hayley, so it pains me to see her have a bad game, but her tackles were poor on Friday. How she escaped without being sent off, he isn't sure. Hayley's a tough one because, as Chloe said, she's one of our best players, and she holds it together. Would you have taken Katie off? Maybe, but as Chloe also rightly said, Lucy Bronze was looking for that yellow card. I want to talk about a point that was mentioned in the watch along, and it's this. Tooney pulling out of a tackle that annoyed a lot of people. It was embarrassing. Chloe, you were in the watch along with us. You saw it on the TV as well. What did you think of it?
Awful. If your friendships go out the window, as soon as you cross that white line, you are playing for the badge on your shirt. Doesn't matter if your best mate's playing for the opposite team. That starts at primary school level. Simple as. And you will still go in for tackles. So to see that in a derby at elite football was blood boiling level. Yeah. Simple as that. Simple.
Yeah, I saw it, and I think that at that point I was more annoyed at that because a couple of minutes later, her best mate makes a tackle on her, and And that just sealed it off for me. Andy, you mentioned it before the game. Would you ever expect to see, I don't know, Gary Nev and Phil Nev pulling out of tackles against each other? Or would you expect them to go, no, we're both committed to this, we're going to take each other out? Because what Tooney did, I think, upset a lot of people. What was it from your point of view? What do you think?
You mentioned the Nevilles, and there's Phil Neville's story about when he played for Everton and he clattered Ronaldo, and he acknowledges that he got up from that tackle and he walked back and he thought, oh, what have I done? But Gary said to him, and Ronaldo himself said to him, good tackle, I'd have done the same. Yeah. That shows it. It's got to go out the window. Friendship can't count on a football pitch. If it does, you're not at the top level. Yeah.
I mean, John Fry makes the point that we always make. Can you imagine Amy T pulling out a tackle against Angarad? No, is the answer. What would happen when they got home, though, that's a different matter. 2-0. Now, Deborah makes the point, and I need to go back and find it. Where is it? Here it is. Deborah makes Kristen Press was picking off Dahlkemper every time because she knows how to play her. And we were talking about the Jess getting up front on Steph. Did we use the right tactic there? Because Kristen obviously plays with Dahlkemper from the USA nationals team. Was it the right tactic to stay away from Steph, know the person you can beat? Andy?
It's too easy now to say no because it didn't work, but it makes sense again. It's like what I said about picking Hayley Ladd and Katie Zellum. It makes sense before the game, but it didn't work out. That makes sense, but it didn't work out. At least they're not decisions that you look at before the game and think that's going to cost us. Although maybe that would be comforting because then you could excuse the poor performance, I suppose.
Yeah. Shane's put this in about the Tooney thing. Tooney needs to do a lot to redeem herself for that from me. If she scores a couple against Arsenal, then for me it's forgotten. It's that simple. I suppose we're going to have to talk about the Caroline Weir goal. It was a great goal. I don't think any of us will deny that. But was it of our own making, Chloe?
Yeah. And it's a bit like the one she scored against us at the Etihad. She got the ball outside the area through an awful clearance, and the one on Friday night was, a silly back heel on the edge of our own box. When you look at it, no United players around, so I don't know why it was trying to be performed. But there's no doubting it was a brilliant goal, and she always seems to score brilliant goals against us, which is frustrating. It's one of them. If she's on your team and scores, it's amazing. If it's against you, it's frustrating. But it's our own downfall, and I think again that's one of our issues this season is the goals. Some of the goals we are conceding are through errors, individual errors that are proving costly.
Yeah, Shane puts it very eloquently. Great goal, sickening, and it was. And the back heel, Deborah picked up on it during the watch along. Just why are you trying a back heel? As John Fry says, get rid of the ball, no messing about, kick it out of the ground. You have no need to do it in his eyes. Deborah does make the point. It was a cracking finish, can't deny it, but how many times did we not charge down their players? And also, what was Tooney doing with the back heel? Shane then goes on to make the point. We ended up our own worst enemy. Some of the goals we've gifted to the opposition. Good goal from your point, or bad defending from it, Andy?
Both. The defending led to it, but she's still got to put it in. I think the most frustrating thing, is at that point of the game, not only with the scoreline and the little time left, but with the way we had played and were playing, it doesn't have much of an impact on the result. But it shows that character again. Even if you're 2-0 down, You don't want it to be 3. Whether it means you can come back and win the game or not, you don't want to let a third goal in. It doesn't matter if the game's gone. You want the character to be there. You want to be fighting for every ball. You want to be trying to stop them from scoring. If it was 6-0 down, you want to fight to stop them from making it 7.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most frustrating thing for me. It was bad defending, which wouldn't be good at any time, but it's the character, which I think is the biggest loss at the minute.
Yeah, and as I said before, it was our biggest ever defeat in the WSL. The defeat, I think we can all say we could handle it, but it was the manner of the defeat, and it was who the defeat was against. I think that it was just a combination of things. People on social media after the game were obviously going on about the team's not good enough, the team's not this, the team's not that. But then Casey comes out and she does an interview and she says, we're fighting for top 3. And that angered United fans even more. Chloe, is top 3 a good finish for United this season, or is it a bad finish where we have been?
I think I would still say top 3. I think you've got to look at the overall way the season's gone. I think if we'd have carried on with none of the injuries we'd had and the performances we were putting in, then top 3 I wouldn't have been happy with. However, we have struggled with the injuries, and they've been crucial injuries. And we've got to remember that, this team is 2 years old in this league. So top 3 is not a bad feat. Getting into Champions League, that's, it's still a big achievement. I think we overachieved to sit at the top of the table as where we were. As nice as it was at the time, I think we've got to be realistic that when you look at the teams around us, we're not at that level just yet.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Just going to go through some of the comments. John Fry just makes the point. It was the first time we lost by 3 goals that hurt so much on that. I agree. Lottie says, Tooney is still young and inexperienced. Mistakes will happen along the way. It's normal. That's why some managers want experienced players. Yeah. John Fry, top 3 is a good season. Fiona, top 3 was always the aim. John then goes back, but in our current situation, it's really good. Deborah makes the point. If we'd been offered it at the start, we'd have all said yes, please. After being top, it might feel a bit of a disappointment, but we were in a false position due to Chelsea having games postponed. And I want to talk about that very briefly. Chelsea have obviously had games postponed because of frozen pitches and everything else. Arsenal have had the same game postponed 3 times. And then they're going to have a bit of a backlog till they get to, and then we've got them in 5 weeks, I think it is. Is the Arsenal game, Andy, now I know John Fry will say every game's our biggest game, but if we beat Arsenal, is top 3 done for you? Are we secured his 3rd?
I'd like to think so. Based on our current form, you wonder. We didn't expect the loss against Reading. That was a game that we should have been picking up the points to keep in line with the rest of the top 3. Especially since Chelsea lost that game as well. If we win that game and Chelsea lose against Brighton, you're thinking it's still on. Forget top 3, the title's still on. But we've had many experiences as United fans in general of seeing teams drop points and not capitalising on it. Like we've said already today, the result isn't so much the issue against City, it's the performance, and that performance is the worrying thing going forward. It's picking ourselves up from that. We've wanted a reaction from the Chelsea loss. We got it. We wanted a reaction from the Reading loss. We didn't get it. Do we get a reaction from this? And that reaction needs to be consistency, not just a one-off big game where we put in a performance. That needs to be we need to be on it from now till the end of the season.
Yeah. Jockey says top 3 was always the aim. Jake then goes, people on social media forget how far this team has come and the fact we've had a great season up to this point. 5 points against the top 3 up to now and showing consistent form. Fantastic season. And Jake, you know, I probably couldn't have said that any better myself. Fiona, agrees with Chloe. Jockey then goes on, we need to learn from Reading's defending. They defend as a unit. And yeah, and that's one of the things that surprised me is recently we've looked that ragged at the back. Deborah's now said that the Aston Villa Arsenal is now scheduled to be postponed on the 28th for some other reason. Can you see the back 4? Are we missing Kirsty Smith as the natural fullback at this point, Chloe? Because Maria's not a fullback by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think we are. I think we're missing a fullbacks, and I think we're missing a leader. And it's shown that, you know, Smith's dropped out the side, and it seems we've gone a bit shaky at the back. We've never, up to now, questioned the character of this squad. We've always known every single one of them will play for each other. But what sickens me at the minute is the consistent offending of silly mistakes from set pieces.
Yeah.
We talked about the Reading game. You know, they scored from set pieces. We thought, okay, we'll learn from that. We'll never see that happen again. And then we go into the derby, and it happens again. And it's whether it is because it's disjointed that Maria's playing right back and we haven't got a set fullback playing or what, but it's something has definitely fallen out of place recently in our back line.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I've mentioned it on here before, and Deborah's obviously said that I love Kirsty Smith. Actually, she's one of those players that just gets on with the job. In many ways, Andy, she kind of someone. I remember in the old days, people used to talk about Dennis Irwin. He doesn't get mentioned a lot. He just gets on and does his job, and he's a constant 7, 8 out of 10. Are we missing a Kirsty Smith right now because she just gets on with the job? She doesn't, make big shows of herself. She just defends and gets forward when she can.
Yeah, you want one of the best things you can have for a defence is that it's settled. And, if your fullbacks are settled, both your centre halves are going to be a lot more comfortable. And I think part of it's going to be down to the injuries in attack, because when you're attacking, your defenders have a much easier job. So I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, if you miss a fullback that's playing regularly, that's playing well, I think this season's probably been Kirsty Smith's best showing. I think she's grown into the squad, into the team. Like you said, without being a superstar, but being somebody that we can rely on. And that consistency in a settled defence is a big plus for any team.
Yeah, John Fry says we're missing Kirsty Smith in defence, and Deborah says, who could ever imagine us will be missing Kirsty Smith? Obviously, we're now in a 3-week international break. And today, apparently, it's come out that this weekend we've got a behind-the-doors game with Sheffield United. So hopefully we can get some of maybe Alessia can have a few minutes here and Lucy can have a few minutes there. And obviously we come back and go straight into a game against Aston Villa. That for me, I'll ask. That for me is a must-win. We win that, and the last 2 games it kind of gets forgotten. Would you go as far to say it's that simple, Andy?
I think we've probably said must win about several games this season, haven't we?
Yeah.
And it all depends. It all depends what the end goal is. I think as far as responses go, which we've talked about, it doesn't matter who that game's against. after a performance like City, after 2 defeats, absolutely you want to see a win. You don't want to give that impetus to other teams that are chasing. So yeah, if we don't win, we'll have a look at the table and we'll rethink and we'll say we're still in with a chance of this, we're still in with a chance of that. But you've got to go into it thinking you've got to win. If the players aren't thinking that, then we have a big issue.
Villa must win. Chloe, for you?
Yeah, 100%. And we've talked about this in the watch-alongs. We always seem to struggle after international breaks. So whether it's Villa or whether it was anyone else, this game is a must-win to get us back into some form of performance, rhythm, and lift the morale, because this has been a shaky month that we've probably never really experienced, to be honest. This is probably the first one where we've kind of sat here and it's kind of been a bit disappointing and not seen any fight. We've never really had that before. So yeah, the Villa game is a must win, and it needs to be a decent performance as well. And there's no reason it shouldn't be, even with the injuries.
And hopefully the injuries are not as, hopefully Tobin might be the only one still out. Obviously, as we said before, we don't know what's going on with Leah, but would you expect to see Leslie and Lucy back on the bench for the Villa game, Chloe?
Yeah, I think if their rehab's going well and if they do get some minutes in their legs at this behind closed doors game, then yeah, I'd love to see them on the bench, and it'd be a great sign, and I think it'd be a positive lift that not just as us as fans would need, and I think the team need as well, to bring the fresh faces back onto the bench can give them the lift as well.
Yeah. Just going to go through a few comments. John Fry, must beat Villa by at least 3 goals. It's a must. Fiona makes the point. Hopefully this break gives us time to rest and reset and come back winning. Ian, must win out. Don't know what that means in English, Ian, but I'm sure you'll let me know. Jay, got to beat Villa, can't overlook them, but we need to score a few in that one. Andy, Alessi back on the bench for Villa and Lucy back on the bench, or would you go as far to say don't include them, make sure they're all right for the Arsenal game?
If you don't beat Villa, then the Arsenal game becomes even bigger, and you want the first game back to be that kind of game. We say if teams put in a performance against a team that are up there, the winners say this was pointless if we don't go and beat whoever next. This is the reverse of that.
Yeah,
you've got to go out to beat Villa. Forget who's next. You've got to go out to win that game first.
Yeah. Ian's rectified what he meant. He meant must win all our remaining games. And yeah, I won't go as far to say win, but we need to at least win most of them. And John Fry goes, it's a good plan B off the bench. So we're going to start to wrap it up now because we're coming up to about an hour. Overall, Friday night, what upset you the most? Scoreline or performance? Andy?
Performance. The result comes from the performance. And as we've said, you can take a defeat if you've played well, but the performance has to come first. The performance is what we need to see more of, character.
Chloe?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the scoreline flattered City. It wasn't a 3-0 game. It was our poor performance and lack of character and leadership on the pitch that effectively ended up with the scoreline that we had.
One of the things that someone mentioned to me was that actually we defended badly for the first goal, which was poor defending, but their main striker in Ellen White she didn't really. She had one shot on goal. So actually, our defence on the night actually proved to be all right against her. It was just our mistakes that cost us 3 goals. I want to thank you both for tonight. So thank you both.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, next week, the podcast is next Tuesday, and you will have Ian on, Nat and Deborah. So don't miss that. I'm sure it's going to be a good one. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and have a good week, everyone. Take care. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.